Yes, people, yes, yeah, it is a brand new year, and we have enough things that we want to talk about. This evening on the Jamaica Mix, I want to just say, wherever you are, if I never did it before, to you and yours, your family, wishing you all the best. And may the new year find you, treat you in good stead. Now, the Jamaica Mix, this is where we really try to field a lot of issues, discussions on some pressing issues around the country and elsewhere. And so tonight we want to have a couple of discussions. We should be joined later on this evening by the erstwhile Professor Christopher Charles um, on as we take on the topic of mental health and the whole issue of suicide and mental health. We saw in the last couple of days, uh, and just an burgeoning development, influx of suicide attempts, um, and just some general behavioral issues that require, in my opinion, some discussion. If we're serious about turning the corner as a country, as an economy, we want to address those issues, particularly too because the whole issue of mental health impacts not just the general population, but it seems to impact even more significantly on our men folk in Jamaica. So we should be joined this evening by the Christopher A.D. Charles, a full professor in political and social psychology at the University of the West Indies. And Professor Charles, um, you know, clearly a man who is best qualified to amplify our discussions on this issue. I am your host, Mr. B, and we're gonna take you all through these uh, various topics as we go through the evening. We try to be as you know economical in terms of the time and how we make the best use of the time. But before we do that, we have some other issues too, but we want to kick off. One of them is the whole business of what's happening with our hotel industry, especially as it relates to its ability to provide employment, meaningful employment to our population, our population members, and in particular our youngsters who would normally utilize these, take on the whole prospect of getting a job in a hotel in order to, you know, especially those just leaving school at the secondary level to sort of get your feet wet in the industry. And it does appear that this whole um, business of the hotel employment as a preferred source of employ for our young people, that is falling by the wayside, and we wanna speak to that as well. The other issue that we want to look at as well, we are, whether we like it or not, it is 2025. um, General elections are constitutionally due in Jamaica in this year. In fact, the the view there is that um, election is perhaps due in somewhere around September. My sense is that we probably won't see that going as far as September. But again, some issues for us to take a look at as it relates to that. And so, we want to kick off the discussion. We want to focus, first of all, on the whole business of elections. Let me rephrase. I want to focus on this whole hotel business and what's happening. Now, um, somebody sent me a tape, a video of an exchange between uh, a, a visitor, apparently, who was um, traipsing on the beaches of a North Coast hotel. And they were accosted by a security guard who essentially told them that the beach is a private beach, right? And that they can't come on the beach, can't use the facilities provided by the beach, excuse me, and so on and so forth, which opens another Pandora's box, right? I think Jamaica is one of the few places in the world where even just the idea of a beach in a coastal area could be deemed as being owned by a hotel property. Now, I've been to other Caribbean islands. I've been to, Barbados, Trinidad, the Grenada, St. Lucia, Antigua. And, we're all part of the Caribbean. We're washed by the Caribbean sea or shores. And the, 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 the consensus would have been that while you can buy a piece of land and you can build anything you want on it, those areas on the periphery, that the public roads, public beaches, that they remain public. But that don't seem to be the case in Jamaica. And so it appears to me that what we are heading into is a kind of a free for all where, as one person said to me, it appears that Jamaica has become punch drunk with this whole idea of external investors in hotel properties in Jamaica to the extent that they have sold out the rights of Jamaicans to even venture, in the on the peripheries, if you will, of some of these properties. What is even worse, too, not only is that a case of the other aspect which feeds into the whole employment issue is the way how these hotel owners now seem to treat with their employees, which is what really begged the discussion about the 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 issue of young Jamaicans not having any desire to work in the hotel industry anymore because one, you ain't paying them any a livable wage, and then most of the times, well, the complaint has been that they are treated very very poorly by these expatriate owners and operators, and so it has become now a, an unfavorable kind of environment within which to operate. And so when you put all of these things together, I saw where um, Lisa Hanna doing a video where she was talking about if you had a little money and you want to take a vacation, would you do that vacation in Jamaica in a Jamaican hotel? And at first I thought it was a little tongue in cheek, but then I started to, just to retrace my own steps. And I've worked in an associate level with the hotel industry way back in the day when I worked as a sales rep for Grace Kennedy. And while there were elements of, this kind of divide between the workers in the hotel and management and to a great extent ownership, it wasn't at the level that we are now seeing it. One of the developments out of that has been in the last couple of months, certainly in the second half of last year, 2024, we saw where the industry had started to become racked by strike action, something that had been hitherto unforeseen as far as um, as far as the Jamaican hotel industry is concerned. And so, it 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 is a cause for concern. Remember, I think our tourism industry is the second largest earner of foreign exchange for the country. And so against that background, one would expect that the the workers or that the whole environment that as it relates to the industry would be one that would be more welcoming to the staff, particularly these youngsters. One of the feature of having young people come into the hotel. Certainly back in the day, a youngster come in a hotel, get a job, and they tended to stay for a longer period of time. That don't seem to be the case anymore, as you know, we're seeing separate and apart from the strike action, a lot of these hotels are understaffed. I hear people, and you see it on social media, the negative feedback. It's people who go, particularly to some of these all-inclusive hotels, they can't get the kind of service. One person pointed out they checked into a hotel, they can't get no sheets for the bed, and where in one instance the leaks in the bathroom, and it took them uh, almost 2 days to get any attention on it. And a big part of that again comes down to the the inadequate staffing, because most of these youngsters are now determining that rather than go in these hotels that work for bus fare, they rather stay home and you know try chop out a shingle for themselves and hang it out as them create their own little business opportunities. And so these are just some of the factors. And one wonders, you know, how do we nix this whole thing? Because certainly this does not augur well for us as a country, especially with respect to, you know, the country's ability to generate its foreign exchange. Um, what are your thoughts as you are out there? What are your thoughts? How have what has been your experience? Both personal or in terms of, the kind of uh, uh, feedback you are getting out there. Feel free to call in 954-274-8177 as we try to, ventilate this discussion. Again, this is the Jamaica Mix, and a place where we really, push some good discussions on some of the most topical issues affecting us these days. Now, the the whole idea though of living in a country where your beaches are off limits to your population must be something that the policymakers, it should grate the sensibilities of our policymakers. And again, election is sort of in the wings, and we wonder if an issue like this is set to to become part of the discourse. Now, don't make no mistake about it. Tourism is a big income earner for Jamaica. More than it's the second largest foreign exchange earner for the country. But do we have to negotiate away our birthright in order to to claim hold on these foreign exchange? That is not to say we're not suggesting that we must abandon our participation in the hotel industry. But is there is it a case where the the policy personnel in Jamaica who create the policy and programs for the operation of the industry, um, is it that they are reluctant, afraid even to negotiate these developments to include the participation of Jamaicans, the use of facilities. I mean, how do you say to a hotel, boy, you're gonna build a property and the whole of the beach, some of the best beaches in the island, the beach is now closed and nobody, if you're not a guest at the hotel, you can't use the beach. I mean, this is a place where Jamaica have, some one of the islands with some of the best beaches, but these beaches are essentially now off limits to its nationals. I mean, I've been to St. Lucia, I have been to Grenada, I've been to Antigua, and that is not the case in those islands. The hotel has its property and it has its line, its fence line. Yeah, the hotel guests still have their lounge chairs and so on spread out on the beach, but it is clear that the beach is not being treated as private property because the locals are able to utilize the beach along with these hoteliers. And I think one of the things that it opens your eyes to is this divide of our society. Because once you have these demarcation, if if you're not a paying patron, you cannot enjoy the facilities of your beaches, which is one of the natural resources of your country. It's a different thing if somebody ventures from the beach and into the hotel proper, because now you're trespassing. But there is a case of a security guard, and I'm seeing if I can play this thing, where the security guard is being is chastising a couple of Jamaicans, this guy and his wife, walking on the beach, and the security guard literally teared him apart. Let me see if we can hear this. Okay, so we're not supposed to walk on the beach here. Even the water, even the water, right? What? Yeah. No, I understand now. If somebody telling something, that is a reason, a reason. So, 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 how are you going to worry me? Yeah, yeah, blessing. I'm going to ask for things because so we have a beach in one in Jamaica. So you are telling me, me and my wife cannot walk in the water, go down there and come back. No, hold on, no, hold on, no, hold on, hold on, no, brother. So, yeah. So that just to give you like a taste of the exchange. And this is an exchange between a security guard at a major hotel. Man, I call the name of the hotel, right? Major hotel that is clearly the beach is not a public beach. But the security clearly based on the instructions that them get is treating the passage of non-guests on the beach front as trespassing. Now these are serious issues that as a people and as a country we need to be paying attention to, because the implications are that and again, in the instance of this thing not being private property, clearly what it is saying is that the operators seem to be pushing a narrative, right? Um, that makes the action of persons who are walking by as to be trespassing. I mean, I don't know nowhere else, that you go where a public beach where you can make a beach private. I don't understand it, right? As one person say, you can walk the beach at any given time. You just can't go on their property. as in leaving the sandy area and going to rooms and the public areas on the hotel. This is for the all-inclusive resorts. Once you're not using their facilities, you're good. Security is there to observe, notify their colleagues of your presence, um, in case you want to go use their facilities otherwise. Now, while that seemed to be the 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 sensible position, that's not what was played out in that video. And what is worse, as we watch the exchange on the video and watch the exchanges, the social media exchange, it's clear that there is a necessity for clarity as it relates to how that issue is needs to be handled. There there the is it that hotels in Jamaica can treat the beach as their own, or is it that having bought the property that they build the hotels on, that these properties they have bought the beaches as well? I think there is a need for a more public position with respect to this. And so it is something to watch. It's 2025. We are now in the first quarter of the 21st century. We've just about now completing the first 25 years of the 21st century. And I believe it is instructive that as Jamaicans, we get some clarity with respect to these kind of issues. Um, you know, nobody is standing in the way of these hoteliers operating their businesses, but you cannot take a position that is a wrong position and try to pass it off as the law, because these security guards are adamant and very, very strident in terms of their own defense of their position. Are they correct? Right? Those are some questions that we need to ask. I want to come back to the whole business as well of you know the hotels and how they are treating with the employment of the young Jamaicans who would normally be heading into the hotels to get especially a job fresh out of school. Um, we see it. We see the industrial action and the the prospect for that is growing. The longer it takes the powers that be to address these issues, and so you know nobody wants to be in a job situation where essentially all you're doing is working for bus fare. Nobody wants to do that, right? And so the question that it begs is, how are we going to address these issues? Because the word of mouth is a big driver of the kind of advertising that pertains to uh, 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 working, visiting a hotel and spending time and your vacation and so on. And the same word of mouth, it applies not just to locals, but visitors who come, if the experience is positive, they're going to share it with their friends and their colleagues at work and otherwise. Because, and that is inexpensive and, beneficial advertising, recommendation. Problem is, if the service is bad, and if you are in an environment where, in a property where the ratio should be 2 or 3 employees, 3 members of staff per hotel room, and you're short one and a half, you're asking for problems. And so these are some of the issues that we need to pay some attention to, right? Uh, do we want the reputation of Jamaica as a preferred destination to fall. And if you don't, how are we going to treat with the problems that we see developing? I see where the minister is talking about um, raising up another 20,000 rooms over the next 10 to 15 years. Question that it begs is, where you gonna get the staffers to staff those properties if we don't address the deepening concerns that workers currently in the industry have with respect to how they are being treated. Um, people, you're not getting adequate pays. The gratuity and tips program, which in the past that is shared amongst members of staff, particularly the line employees, um, that has not been happening, and it's a real serious cause for concern. Workers talk about the conditions, the the pressure that they're on to have to work um, longer hours and so on, and they're not being compensated. Plus, remember, Jamaica is not a place where have the best of transportation, um, and so that experience again is a negative with respect to the employees. I think it's something that the minister and the minister of tourism um, and certainly Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Labor needs to be paying more attention to. It can't be sufficient that we bring foreigners into Jamaica to operate these businesses, but they do it only for their own benefit, and the worker is literally being treated as if this is a servile situation. The whole service component is is moving away. So those are just some of the concerns that I have, and I think as we, the year is early, we haven't really settled into the winter tourist season yet. Um, Winter is really just starting to bite here in the United States, North America, which is where the lion's share of our tourists come from. And so, you know, if that Jamaica is one of the fastest space tourism space that tourists can run to escape the clutches of winter. You want to hope that the powers that be and the property owners address this situation before it turns nasty. So the now the other day we got a news item that JetBlue, the JetBlue Airlines, uh, an aircraft landed in I think it was Fort Lauderdale, and they found two bodies. Well, the report earlier said it was two bodies. I understand now it's three because there's also a youngster, a young boy who was among the three that they apparently stowed away on the aircraft, and they found them in the wheel well, dead. According to a report I saw today, the bodies were badly decomposed because it seemed as if the aircraft did several runs before the discovery was made. And I saw where our Minister of Foreign Affairs was at pains trying to shoo away the innuendos that were being passed that these stowaways were Jamaicans. Well, my information is that they were actually from the Dominican Republic. Um, I am not aware that it is so easy in any event for Jamaicans to have gotten onto the tarmac and inserted themselves into the wheel well of an aircraft. But the aircraft seemed to have done several runs. It went to Dominican Republic. It flew to New York, to Fort Lauderdale, also into Kingston. But my information is that the deceased were all from the Dominican Republic. Um, I know that the government of Jamaica, and in particular the Minister of Foreign Affairs, as I said, have been trying to bat off the suggestions that the 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 victims were not Jamaicans. Which they've made a bigger effort at that though, because it is all over the news. Um, and they weren't. It's. I only learned yesterday that the bodies were that of people from the Dominican Republic. Now, it really take a hell of a person to want to stow away in the wheel well of an aircraft. Now, once the plane take off, that plane is going to fly 28, 30,000 feet. And once you start to get into those temperatures, first of all, you don't have no oxygen. So it's asphyxiation. And then at that height, you're going to freeze to death. People must be really, really desperate to have to do that. And I'm glad it's not that they weren't Jamaicans. I'm sad that had to, that people still had to feel that they had to resort to that kind of approach in an effort to find a better life somewhere else. And it just goes to show why we need to, place more value on our people, those people in authority who create policy. You really, need to be as you policy is about developing the people of the country, and you know it is the absence of such policies that provide the opportunity for this kind of desperation. I certainly hope that the message has gotten home to others everywhere else, not just in the Dominican Republic. Jamaicans who may, we have this copycat mentality where anybody do anything, we try to follow it. This is one thing we don't want nobody follow. Once you get into that wheel well and the thing lock up, there's no oxygen in there, and you need oxygen to breathe for your blood supply, or you're gonna dead, as is the case with these three people. You know, we offer condolences to the families that they leave behind. We just hope that you know that kind of misadventure, nobody goes down that road um, anymore. And again, if anybody had any intention of venturing in that direction, that that those intentions would have disappeared with this particular development. Now, the other discussion that I want to pick up here is this whole business of people taking their own life, suicide, the suicidal um, individuals. Now, let me say this, because somebody brought this to my attention, right? And my good friend Professor Donna Hope had actually um, opened the conversation with a Facebook post that she made, and as she said in her post, there's a growing crisis among working class Jamaican men that needs attention and resolution. Now, and she referenced a number of incidents or instances. Now, let me make it clear. Professor Hope is professor of culture, gender, and society. She's a researcher, broadcaster, a mother, author poet and an aficionado in terms of our studies of dancehall in Jamaica. Um, so, this is not just any willy-nilly. And for Professor Hope to take her time to put her thoughts together. She said, um, there was the shooting of a seemingly mentally ill 23-year-old Isaac Foster. This took place at the Dovecot number 2 cemetery in Kidston Town on Monday. This was the day before the New Year's Eve, Monday, December 30. And then, of course, there was a shooting of a mentally agitated 50-year-old Okari Gale, who had chopped his father with a machete in Manchester on Monday, January 6th. That's just a couple of days ago. And of course, there was the suicide attempt by 35-year-old Shadeen Gentles, who is a former firefighter with the Jamaica Fire Brigade. If people will remember this particular incident, this Mr. Gentles basically climbed on top of the transport center and with with the intention of taking his life. Of course, his own inability to cope with whatever issues he had been faced with led him to this to take this kind of action. And then, of course, there is the suspected suicide of Ryan Fearon in Portmore, and that happened on the 7th. That was the Tuesday, the 7th. That's 2 days ago. Where these are just some of the most recent and more visible manifestation of this problem. But of course, as she pointed out, there are so many other sides to these stories. Too many of our men, our Jamaican men, are just not okay. Okay? Too many of us as men, we're not okay. And then there is this tendency to treat the suicide as or not just suicide, but to treat mental health, people with mental health issues, to treat them we treat the whole idea of mental health as as with a kind of a negative stigma, right? Um, a lot of people crack under pressure because they just don't have the coping skills, whether it is work pressure or the pressure of not being able to find meaningful employment, not being able to take care of your domestic responsibilities, children, your family. Um, you know, these are issues that as Jamaicans, we as a society have failed to tackle them over the years. And so the manifestation of it is that there are people, for example, who are challenged mentally, but they keep it in, they bottle it up, and then faced with the wrong kind of the wrong kind of stigma, if you will, or you know something trigger the behavior, and it turned into a disaster, as had been the case with the man who chopped up his father. Police actually shot him dead. And so that family not only have to now bury the father, but to bury the son because of our inability. The question is, did the police have to shoot the man? There was a video of the police involved in the incident. I'm not clear that the man was a threat to the police, except that they see him with a machete. And you figure that once him have a machete and a bloodstained machete, you're gonna treat him as a threat. My jury is out on that. But the fact is, so two people died in that one incident. In the case of the fire brigade man, he went up on the roof of the the transport center in Half a Tree, and somebody who, was brave enough, I understand, um, brave enough to mount the structure and go up there and basically talk him down, right? Brave individual. I think this person was another firefighter who took the decision to board the to get on top of the structure and to talk him down. Now they, I was hoping that we would get Prof on the call this evening, but I'm not seeing any response from him. But be that as it may, we continue. Um, Now, this whole business of mental health, right? Is it that these multiple incidents in just the space of a week? Is it a marker? Is it an indicator that we should be concerned about? Now, one of the things I know is people who have individuals in their family who are mentally challenged, the tendency is to keep it under wraps. Nobody don't want to talk about it. You sit on the thing. And then as one person asked if the high murder rate in Jamaica is masking the growing suicide rate, which is a reasonable question, especially among our male population. And so the question is, how can suicidal individuals be better identified and their cries for help be heeded? Now, addressing suicide effectively requires a multifaceted approach that, in my opinion, includes improved identification of at-risk individuals, creating a supportive system, and addressing societal factors. Now, a couple of strategies that as I research the topic, um, that could better identify and support individuals who may be at risk of suicide, particularly in our Jamaican space. The first one is education and awareness. I think if we have community outreach programs which educate communities about the signs of suicidal behavior and the importance of mental health, out of which we develop campaigns that destigmatize mental health challenges, especially for men. And in my opinion, this can help to encourage people who find themselves in that kind of a challenged situation to go seek help. Now, schools and workplaces, those are some of the the the, the centers that you can implement mental health awareness programs. Certainly, schools, universities, and of course in the workplace. These programs should address emotional resilience, stress management, and just to help people to recognize how to recognize the warning signs of their peers, especially those who may be suffering these challenges. The the other side of that is, providing training for key stakeholders. Healthcare providers, you want to train healthcare professionals, including general practitioners, to screen for mental health issues and identify suicide risks factors during routine visits. So somebody go to you for your primary care doctor, not because you're just a general practitioner, but at the very least among the the investigation, because a general practitioner doctor's visit, you go for your checkup, check the mental health too, ask some questions. Um, Teachers and social workers, again, you can equip educators and social workers with the skills to recognize and to respond to students and community members who are showing signs of distress. And then on the law enforcement side, it's not just giving the policeman or woman a gun because they're a madman, you're gonna shoot them down. You know, the it includes mental health crisis training in police education to help the police officers manage and refer individuals who are in distress for the appropriate resources. And then you need better and more accessible mental health services. Things like counseling. Where can somebody go to seek counseling? We need to increase access to affordable or free mental health services, particularly for people in these underserved communities, inner city communities. You need to make that access, make the access to counseling and care more available. Um, if you have public health clinics, have a mental health counseling center or area within the clinic to deal with stuff like this. So you establish these local centers where people can easily access psychological support without having to deal with the stigma of being labeled as mad. Jamaica people call everybody madman if you once you're not operating like them. And then you have crisis support centers and hotlines. Maintain and widely publicize these so that there's a 24 hour 7 days a week suicide hotline, and make sure that this is staffed by trained professionals who can address. The guy who went on the top of the transport center is an indication. Clearly, this guy may have had some knowledge of the individual, but more importantly, he had some skills that allowed him to talk the young man down, and so the man is still alive today. But that shouldn't be the end of the issue, because you now need to provide support to this man so that he don't see a need to attempt this in the future, right? We also need to look at identifying and addressing risk factors. This whole idea of putting in place risk assessment tools, implement screening tools in healthcare and social service settings to identify individuals who are at risk or higher risk, those such as those people who are dealing with issues, unemployment, people who have lost loved ones, particularly if they lost them in a tragic way, people who are substance abusers, or people who have chronic illnesses. These are all what we call, points at which the 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 panic trigger and the mental health issue um, jumps over, and people decide to take their things in their own hands, and to take their own lives. Excuse me. Now, other thing we want to do is to focus on the vulnerabilities for our men folk, right? Because, as I said in the piece, I think our men are more vulnerable than anything else. So one of the things we want to do is to focus, or to recognize the unique pressures that men have to face, such as societal expectations of masculinity, which may deter them from expressing vulnerability or for seeking help. So, so boy, a big man not deal with them, cause no go tell nobody about them problem. You deal with the problem yourself. No, we have to break out those kind of stigmas so that people can feel comfortable to reach out. If you have a friend, your brethren, your sister, you know them having a little challenge, you want to create the kind of environment that they will come to you and say, boy, Rich or so and so, I find that I can't cope. So you create an environment which is receptive to people who will feel that them can come and talk to you. You know, we we have to look at supporting the providing support for survivors and families of a grief cause. Somebody die in a family, you have a death in the family. These are triggers where people who can't cope with, especially depending on the closeness of the relationship between the deceased and the survivor. You wanna keep the door open for the survivor to go and and offer that kind of counseling, grief counseling, you know, um, and provide the support for families affected by suicide, as they may also be of higher risk, right? It's a whole slew of approaches that I believe we all, if we take a more responsible approach, we can help to treat with this malady. It is not a stigma. We really need to destigmatize this whole business of mental health. Nobody wish that on themselves. And in my opinion, somebody with mental illness is no different from somebody who have cancer, diabetes, or any of these maladies. It's another illness that can be medicinally treated, right? And can be can be I don't want to say cured, but certainly with treatment you can bring the person who is on the edge back to some level of stability, and then you provide the controls that would eliminate any any kind of consideration for taking them own life, right? I generally believe though that from a political and government standpoint, government policy, we need to advocate for more national mental health policies that prioritizes um, mental health policies that prioritize suicide prevention, including providing funding for mental health services in Jamaica, because we're in a dire straits. I mean, and what is worse, though, in the majority of instances, it's younger people who are ending their lives because, and more often than not, if you really do the investigation, their inability to cope. We live in this fast-paced, technology-driven, profile led environment, and that puts pressure on others who can't keep up, you know and with our young people who want to belong to groups, the social settings, and when their inability to participate, if you're not careful, it leads us into this thing. So that's the issue for me today. I just wanted to ventilate this. I always thought that it was an issue that we need to pay more attention to. Um, Hopefully this little exchange here helps as far as just being able to identify that mental health issue is not a disgrace. Nobody, nobody asked, right, or went out of them way to to become mentally ill. And so, you know, we would hope that as we take a closer look at this whole thing, that we are better able to treat with the whole this business of mental health, right? That is all the time that we have this evening. It has been I I'm happy for those of you who took the time out to join. Um, and we do this again next week, Thursday, same time, as we pick up some of the um, testy issues that impact us. Again, to all of you, again, all the best for the new year as it gallops away. We are almost into the end of the second week of 2025. Walk good and all the best.